I hate it when I forget to record. Missed that first part. The syllabus and the syllabus attachment have been added to MyMac. You can download them or print them, whatever you would like to do. It gives information about taking tests and that kind of stuff. If you don't have your textbook yet, don't panic. Everything we're talking about for this week and next week is in the textbook, but you don't necessarily have to have the textbook to get it. So I would try to get it before, let's see, where'd my little calendar go? I would try to get it by the start of March. So that still gives you a few weeks to get that done. Because then when we start going through musical history periods, we will be doing some online assignments that are connected to the book. So if you haven't gotten it yet, it's okay, but do try to do that soon. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get rolling. Okay, and I don't like that. Okay, can everyone see my, oh, it's because you're on the wrong screen. Okay, hang on. Not exactly sure how you ended up over there, but there you are. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay.
I can see it.
Okay, terrific. So on screen, you'll see the syllabus and the syllabus attachment have been added. So do with those what you need to do with those. Also, just want to show you, because some people have emailed and said they've had trouble finding the Zoom recording. Those are under news and announcements. Here's the recording from last week. It's a YouTube link. What I have to do is I have to take the Zoom once we're done. I have to convert that file, and then I have to upload that file to YouTube, and a long video takes a long time to upload. So they may not be available until Wednesday, depending on how long it takes me to upload the actual recording. But that's the only way I figured out to do this, because I can't put the link, the video itself directly on MyMac, which is kind of a pain, but that's how we have to do it because that's what works. So those are available here under news and announcements here in MyMac. So if you're looking for the Zoom recordings, that's where you will find them. The textbook is edition 14, which I didn't know until Curtis showed up with one last week, and I'm really glad he did. I have ordered mine, but mine's not even in yet. I borrowed one from a colleague. So if you don't have yours yet, be sure you're getting edition 14. If you get edition 13, it will probably tell you that the period to enroll, it has expired and you won't be able to do much with that. Also, don't buy a used book, because once the code for that book has been used, you can't reuse that code. So I know it's more expensive to buy a new book, but you do need to buy the new one so you'll have the code. Okay. All right. So last time we only did chapter 1 because the weather was bearing down on us. And then last week we didn't have class because everybody was iced in. So we're picking it up with chapter 2 and moving forward from there. So this is the wrong side. So let's go to the first side. And we'll try that again. So we're talking about the elements of music. What makes music music? What is music? And a very important element of music is the beat. This is the beat. No, that's a tomato. Yes, stick with me. Beat is the unchanging underlying pulse of the music. Beat is like a tomato. No matter how you slice up a tomato and serve it, it's still a tomato. Beat can be fast or slow, but it is the beat. It is the fundamental heartbeat of the music. You may have done things like this elementary music. I hope you did. The hearts are showing you the steady beat, while all the more complex things are going on around it. The beat is what ties it all together. Beat is what you tap your toe to. Now, there are more complex rhythms, which we're going to talk about in just a second, going on around that beat. But you don't usually tap your toe to the rhythm of the song because it's going to be complicated and your toe's going to do some weird stuff. You tap your toe to the beat. When we dance to the beat. We march to a beat. And if you can identify the cowbell sound, the cowbell is playing the beat. Or cowbell, right? So if the beat is the tomato, rhythm is how you slice it up and serve it. This is 2 halves of a tomato, but it's still a tomato. This is rhythm. This is tomato sauce, but it's still a tomato. This is rhythm. These are tomato slices. It's, if you put it all back together, it would still be a tomato. This is rhythm. These are tomato wedges. You put them together, you'd still get a tomato. This is rhythm. Rhythm is how you chop it up and serve it. Rhythm is how the beat is divided up. Rhythm moves music forward in time. Because when we were listening to that steady beat video, okay, yeah, that steady beat, but what's going to make it go somewhere? The way that we divide it up. Whether you have shorter notes and longer notes. If you have really long notes like this, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, that doesn't seem like you're going to get very far very fast. If you have half notes, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, okay, now we're getting somewhere. But if you have quarter notes like we did on the video we just watched, now you feel like you can move and you can move forward, you can walk or dance or march to that beat. It's going somewhere. Now, if you've ever watched a marching band, especially in a parade, when the percussion section is playing a cadence, it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, right? The bass drum may be playing that to hold it all together, but the drums themselves are playing much more complicated things. That's rhythm. Underneath it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The beat is still there, but it's been chopped up and served a different way. Rhythm can be complex or very simple. Rhythm is how the beat is sliced, diced, and served, but it is not the beat. It's the way the beat is presented. Certain rhythmic styles are directly connected to musical styles and genres. And as we go through the weeks to come, you'll understand what that means a little better.
You've probably seen one of those machines that measures heart rates, right? They are almost always shown in TV and movies when someone is in a hospital, especially when a person dies and you hear that flatline sound effect. If you use one of those machines to look at the heart rate of a person who is resting, you should notice that each heart palpitation occurs at a consistently steady and regular pulse. We call this a heartbeat. When a person has an irregular heart rate, it is called cardiac arrhythmia. Notice what arrhythmia sounds like. Rhythm. Beat and rhythm are terms that we use in music as well. If you keep in mind the medical application of these words, it can help you remember what beat and rhythm mean when applied to music. Many people use beat when they mean rhythm and vice versa. Let's set the record straight on what they mean and when to use them when describing music. A beat is a steady and regular pulse you hear in music. Just like a normal heartbeat should be regular, the beat in music always is equally spaced and usually doesn't change. Rhythm is the actual flow of music through time. Just as cardiac arrhythmia is irregular, rhythm doesn't have to be equally spaced. Rhythm usually is built upon the beat, which is why you often see drummers or conductors counting off the beat before the music begins. To illustrate how beat and rhythm are different but related, listen to how I say this sentence. I don't care if you go to the store. I will say it again, but this time count the number of beats you hear. I don't care if you go to the store. Let's take the same 9 beats, but use a different sentence. Jackie doesn't like it when you go to the store. Did you notice how some of the beats had more syllables in them than others?
Wonder what Jackie's problem
That
is.
a rhythm based on the 9 beats that we established. Take the same sentence and cram it into just 5 beats and you get Jackie doesn't like it when you go to the store. The actual flow of the words is the rhythm, whereas the underlying pulse is the beat. Be sure to like and subscribe for more music-related videos. And as always, thanks for watching.
I wonder why Jackie cares if we go to the store or not. Maybe we didn't bring her something last time and she was mad. I don't know. Meter. Here's some examples of meter signatures. You have probably seen these before, but maybe not this one. Let's talk about this one for just a moment. This one and this one actually mean the same thing. It's called common time, hence the C. 4/4 is the most common time signature. So this C means common time. 2/4 and 3/4 are also based on the quarter note. That's what the 4 at the bottom means. And this is based on the 8th note. That's what the 8 at the bottom means. Meter groups the beats into units called measures, also commonly called bars. Think of meter like a shoebox. You can only shove so much junk into a shoebox before it explodes, right? Well, measures are like that too. So let me go back for a moment. I can fit more beats into a measure of 4/4 time than I can into a measure of 3/4 time. And the top number is why. The top number in 4/4 time tells me I can put 4 beats in each measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But the 3 on top here tells me I can only put 3 beats in a measure. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it also feels very different to us. This is my unscientific opinion. I think that 4/4 and 2/4 feel easier to us as musicians, especially young musicians, because our hearts operate more closely to 2 beats and 4 beats than they do to 3. This would be one of those arrhythmias that they were just talking about in that video. I can only fit 2 beats in a measure of 2/4 time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I'm not going to talk about 6/8 yet. You don't want to know about that just yet. Meter signatures, also called time signatures, indicate how many beats you can fit into each measure. Remember, measure and bar are interchangeable words in this case. Meters can be simple, like 2/4, 4/4, and 3/4, or they can be complex, like numbers with 8s on the bottom.
Time signatures. In a musical score, the time signature appears at the beginning of a piece, after the clef and key signature. The time signature tells you the number of beats or counts in a measure, as well as the type of note that fills one beat. Time signatures contain 2 numbers. The top number tells you how many beats there are in each measure or bar of a song. The bottom number tells you what kind of note gets a beat. For example, in a 3/4 time signature, each measure contains 3 quarter notes. In a 4/4 time signature, each measure contains 4 quarter notes. Most songs are written with a 4/4 time signature. The top 4 in a 4/4 time signature tells us that there are 4 beats in each measure. The bottom 4 tells us what note value constitutes 1 beat. In this case, a quarter note gets 1 beat. So the pulse or beats in a 4/4 time signature is counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. This means that all the notes in each bar or each measure must add up to 4 quarter notes. Any combination of rhythms can be used as long as they add up to 4 quarter notes. In other words, you can have 2 half notes in a measure, or you can have 2 quarter notes and 1 half note, or 1 whole note, or 8 eighth notes. It really doesn't matter, as long as the notes add up to 4 quarter notes. A quarter note receives 1 count, a half note receives 2, and a whole note receives 4 counts. 4/4 time is used so much that it is often called common time, written as a bold C. Time
Syncopation is a way to make rhythm sound more complex. To syncopate a rhythm means to give emphasis to a part of the beat that would normally be weak, giving it more importance in the sound of the rhythm. Syncopation is an important feature in jazz music, but it's not only found in jazz. The normally weak beats are called off beats. You know, COVID was a weird time. So syncopation makes music a lot more interesting. When we did the part that said this rhythm is not a syncopation, that sounded really kind of boring and kind of plain. In jazz, we call that square. It's super square because there's no syncopation, so it doesn't sound fancy or interesting. It doesn't really move. So syncopation makes music sound a lot more interesting and honestly a little more complicated. It doesn't always mean that syncopation has to be a very complicated rhythm, but it does lend more weight to the off beats. I think I forgot to say that word. Let me go back. The normally weak beats are called off beats. When you have eighth notes, if this is the beat, and I play eighth notes on the beat, it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The number happens when I clap my hands, and the offbeat is when my hands are apart. That's the offbeat. That's the and part. So in order to syncopate, I would make the ands more important. One and, one and, one and, one and a two and a one and, one and a two and. And that still is built around the basic beat, my hands. But it sounds a lot more complicated because I'm giving more emphasis to some of the offbeats. That's what syncopation is. No, we've already done it. Okay. I think we talked about harmony last time, but let's just reinforce that. So we're staying in the right spot in the book. Harmony is when more than one pitch is sounded at the same time. Not all harmony sounds nice. Harmony can be very clashy, very grindy, especially if two or more of those notes are played that are very close together. on the piano, like for instance, on the piano keyboard. If you play a black key and a white key that are right beside each other at the same time, they're gonna sound kind of crunchy and kind of grindy. And that's harmony, but it's not always pleasant to listen to. You wouldn't want to hear it all day long. Harmony can be consonant, which is a stable or restful sound, which is usually pleasant to the average listener's ear. When we think of harmony, that's usually what we think of first. We think of consonant harmonies. The Beach Boys singing in harmony, the Everly Brothers singing in harmony, the Eagles singing in harmony. Those are usually very consonant sounds, and they sound nice. Simon and Garfunkel. But music, the harmony can also be dissonant, which is an unstable or discordant, grindy, unpleasant sound. Dissonant chords sound like they want to resolve or get fixed, so they move to a consonant sound. It's called a resolution. And it goes from that grindy, uncomfortable sound where you're thinking, oh my gosh, fix it, fix it, fix it. And then when it goes to consonant sound, it's like a relief. You feel like you can breathe again. It's sort of, if you watch horror movies, when the bad guy is sneaking up, when the killer's sneaking up to try to stab you in the back, the sounds are going to be dissonant. But when you are rescued and they take the killer away and lock him away until the sequel, until he manages to escape from jail in the sequel, then you have consonant sounds, harmonically pleasant sounds, because the danger has passed. Good. So when you heard those dissonant sounds at the end, didn't you want somebody to fix them? They sound clashy, they sound crunchy. You think, is that a wrong note? Did they mean to play that note? Yeah, they really did. It's just a dissonant sound. So composers use dissonance when they want you to feel unsettled, when they want you to feel a little less stable. As we get into the 20th century composers and talking about their music, dissonance was their favorite thing. And they didn't always resolve the dissonance. They wanted it to stay unresolved and wanted it to stay crunchy and grindy to make a point. The Romantics, like Chopin, used dissonance, but usually would resolve it into consonants and would let you have that emotional release of the resolution. But the 20th century guys, they didn't care if you were comfortable or not. That was not why they were composing. Here's another example of consonance and dissonance.
In this video, we're going to listen to the difference between consonant and dissonant intervals. Consonants sound smooth, and those are comprised with thirds, fourths, fifths, and octaves. And your dissonant intervals will comprise your seconds, augmented fourth or diminished fifth, and sevenths. Consonant, major third. Consonant, minor third. Consonant, perfect fifth. Consonant, perfect octave. Consonant, perfect fifth. Consonant, perfect fourth. Consonant, major third. Dissonant, augmented fourth. Dissonant, diminished fifth or augmented fourth. Minor second, dissonant. Dissonant, major seventh. Dissonant, major seventh. Dissonant, minor seventh. Dissonant, minor seventh.
Now, do you need to know all of those intervals and whether they're consonant or dissonant? Absolutely not. What you need to know is the difference between a consonant and a dissonant sound. The consonant is comfortable. Those two both start with C. And dissonant sounds dangerous. Those both start with D. We create harmony using chords. Chords are the simultaneous sounding of 3 or more pitches. The most common kind of chord is a triad. And you see the prefix tri, like tricycle, meaning that a triad consists of 3 pitches sounding together. Chords are built using a particular scale or series of pitches. The most common scales have 8 steps. Like for a C scale would start on C and then go to the C above or below it on the piano keyboard. Scales can be major or minor. And the pattern of half and whole steps determines whether a scale is major or minor. And you can move those half and whole steps around and turn them into major or minor scales. There's a set pattern for a major scale. There are set patterns for the minor scales. There are more than one kind of minor scale. There's also a pentatonic scale, which is only 5 steps instead of 8. And almost all Western music is built on either major or minor scales. Non-Western music uses more or fewer degrees. Many of them are built on the pentatonic scale, and some are built on the chromatic scale. Again, in the 20th century, composers really liked the chromatic scale, which is all of the half and whole steps from, say, a C to the C above or below it, because it expanded their palette of available notes, and it gave them more notes to use to make those crunchy sounds that they liked so much. They had more availability. And the more notes you have available, the more notes you can cram into a chord and make it sound really dissonant and crunchy. Oops. Tonic is the home base for a musical piece. Did I skip something? No. Tonic is the home base for a musical piece. If I say that this song is in the key of C, that means that the tonic is C. Tonic and key are kind of interchangeable. A tonic chord is built on the first note of a scale. Again, if the key is C, if the tonic is C, then C is going to be the lowest degree, the lowest note of the first major chord I can create in a C major scale. If the scale is minor, a C minor scale, then the first triad I create will be a C minor chord. The tonic is I can't speak. The tonic is directly related to the key of the musical piece. Now let's say we're in C, but we don't want to be in C. I would rather play this in the key of D. And as a ukulele player, sometimes there are chords that I don't want to play on my ukulele, like an E. I don't play E chords. So in order to fix that, I have to transpose the piece. I have to take the tonal center of C and I have to move the entire piece of music to the tonal center of D. Or maybe that's too high for my voice to sing along. Maybe instead, I want to take the tonal center of C and move it down to the tonal center of A. When I move to transpose, every chord in the piece has to move with me. It's got to change from space to space. Let's say you're standing on the third step of a staircase. If you want to go higher, you would move up 2 more steps. Or if you want to go lower, you would move down 2 steps. That's kind of what transposition is like. Let's say you're standing on the 3rd step and your cousin is standing on the 4th step. You want to go up. So when you go up, your cousin has to go up too. Otherwise, you're going to be on the same step and you're going to get in a fight. That's transposition. But modulation will change the tonal center temporarily in the song. So if you're standing on the 3rd step, your cousin's standing on the 4th step, but it's a really wide staircase. You can step up to that 4th step. There's plenty of room for both of you. No one's going to fall off. And then later on, you decide you don't want to stand by that cousin anymore and you go back to the 3rd step. Often a modulation will occur for a temporary time in a piece, and also often it will shift back to the original key or tonal center. This becomes very important in the classical period and the Baroque period of music, when there were actual rules and regulations about when you could modulate and change the key in a longer piece of music like a symphony or a concerto. And it was important to always come back to home base. If you start in C and you modulate to say G, you're going to come back to C before the end of that piece of music. That was the rule. And we still kind of do this now. If you're familiar with songwriting terms, if you write, say, a pop song, you're going to play a verse, a chorus, and then a bridge. The bridge is where the modulation often takes place. And then you go back to another verse, so you go back to the original key.
Hey guys, welcome to Fredericktown. Today we're going to talk about modulation. Modulation is the act of moving from one key to another within a single piece of music. Now, I do need to warn you, this is one of the major conceptual sticking points in learning music theory. Understanding modulation requires unlearning a lot of things we had to learn earlier, but the end result is a great tool for composing and arranging along with a deeper understanding of the fundamental nature of harmony. So if anything confuses you or you're not sure if you understand, ask questions and try the practice exercises. We're here to help. Modulations can be broken down into a lot of different subtypes, but I'm going to focus on 3 of the biggest ones: parallel modulation, direct modulation, and pivot chord modulation. The first of those is probably the simplest to understand. Parallel modulation is when you change scales but keep the same tonic. For instance, you could start your piece in D major and then transition at some point to D minor or even D Dorian. This changes the emotional feel of the piece without affecting the tonic grounding. This may sound familiar to those of you who watched our previous videos. What's the difference between parallel modulation and modal interchange, which we discussed a few weeks ago? Basically, it's a question of duration. Well, there's no clean dividing line. Modal interchange involves temporary borrowing for flavor, often just for a single chord, whereas parallel modulation is a complete shift the intent to stay. Maybe not stay forever, but at least for a section or something. Which one it is, though, is sometimes a subjective judgment, so go with what your ear tells you. Second is what's known as direct or unprepared modulation. This is where you change the key without warning. You're just chugging along in B minor. And suddenly, you're in C. This is a great way to quickly and cheaply build up energy, and is often used in the last chorus of a song for a violent punch. For an extreme example, check out the end of Beyonce's Up on Top. Listen to how many times they get away with repeating the same chorus, because each time the range shifts a little higher and the energy lifts with it. Because it's sudden and unprepared, direct modulation works best when it's moving to keys that are chromatically close to the original key. Often this means either a major or minor second, although thirds are doable as well. Because the point is to lift the energy up, these tend to ascend. You rarely see direct modulations moving down. The last type I want to talk about is a more complicated concept called pivot chord modulation. Pivot chord modulation is where you smooth out the transition by using one or more chords that are in both keys. For instance, here are all the triads in A major. Now here are all the triads in E major. We can see at a glance that a lot of these are the same. They both have A major, C sharp minor, E major, and F sharp minor. Any of these chords are viable pivot options. So we can start with this progression in A major. This has been a few pivot chords, and then resolve out of it to E. See how that felt like a complete resolution, even though in the key we started in, that chord should have been dominant? That's the power of pivot chord modulation. It's hard to pull off, but if you do it right, your listener may not even know they've changed key at all. However, there are some limitations. Much like how direct modulation like to move to scales that were chromatically close, pivot chord modulation prefers keys that are harmonically close. The more notes the scales have in common, the easier pivot chords will be to find and the smoother the transition will sound. It's a lot easier to go from G to D, which has one different note, and the D flat, which has 6. In fact, keys that try to one apart have no diatonic chords in common, making pivot chord modulation between them incredibly difficult, but not impossible. We'll get to that later. For now, that's modulation. Try the exercises. Please ask questions if you don't understand something. Join our mailing list to get all our new videos, and keep on rocking.
Okay, do you need to know all those different kinds of modulations? No, you don't. What you need to know is modulation is when you change the key temporarily inside a piece, and you're going to come back to home base. As opposed to transposition.
Welcome back to our 17th episode here at Play Piano. Today is all about a skill that composers use all the time to write parts for multiple instruments, transposition. Transposition is taking a note or line of music and raising or lowering each note by a certain amount of semitones. Now, when you change every single note in a line of music by default, you end up changing the entire key signature. Let's look at this example of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in the key of C major. Here are the notes C, C, G, G, A, A, G, F, F, E, E, D, D, C. But what if I wanted you to transpose this melody, say, up a perfect fourth? What would the music look like? What key would we be in now? Well, all C's would jump up to F's, all G's would jump up to C's, A's to D's, F's to B flats, E's to A's, and D's to G's. So what was once Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in the key of C has now become Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in the key of F major. That is really the whole process to transposition. You just move up or down the same desired interval for each note in the line that you want transposed. Since we've transposed up in the last example, let's transpose down in this example. Here is Mary Had a Little Lamb in the key of G major. Now we want to transpose this melody down, say, a minor third. So all B's would then go down to G sharp. All A's would go down to F sharp, G's to E's, and D's to B's. So our Mary Had a Little Lamb in the key of G is now Mary Had a Little Lamb in the key of E, down a minor third. All you need to do is work on a couple of examples in your theory textbook, and you'll be great in no time. We'll see you in the next video.
So that was like those stair steps we were talking about. So remember there are two, well, there are more, but the two type of scales that are most common in Western music are major and minor scales. So here you see a piano keyboard, okay? The distance between this white key and this black key is a half step. The distance between this white key and this white key is a whole step because this half step is in between them. Just like two halves make a whole. This is a half step, this is a half step, this is a whole step. So between this white key and this white key, there is no black key in between to make a half step. So this is actually a half step. Hope that makes sense, because that's kind of important to understanding scales.
Are you struggling with music theory and knowing how you can use it to make you a better composer? I'm Simon from Composing Academy. And today I'm going to show you a quick video covering the major and minor chords, their differences, and how we can work out the note each chord uses based on an easy to remember formula. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more music theory and composing tips and tricks. So what is a chord? A chord in its most basic sense is three or more notes played together. The most common types of chords are triads, which feature three distinct notes. There are a few different types of triads, but the most commonly used are major and minor triads. Major triads typically sound happy, and minor chords normally sound sad. Let's take the chord of C major. A C major chord starts on the letter C. This is called the root note.
Or tonic.
To find the other notes of the chord, we are going to count up from the root note. For a major chord, the second note of the triad is 4 half steps or semitones away from letter C. A half step or semitone is the smallest distance between two notes. Let's count up 4 half steps from C. We land on letter E. The distance between these two notes is called a major thirds interval. We now need to find the third and last note of our triad. Starting on the note of E, which we just found, this time count up 3 half steps or semitones. We arrive at the note of G. So here we have our 3 notes, C, E, and G. Play them all simultaneously, and we have a chord of C major. Any major chord can be found by applying this formula, starting on the root note, then going up 4 half steps, then up a further 3 half steps. Like major chords, minor triads are also made up of 3 notes. The formula for minor chords is reversed, however. Let's have a go at finding the chord of A minor. We begin by finding the starting or root note of letter A. Now let's go up 3 half steps. You should arrive on the letter C. This interval is called a minor third and gives the chord its sad quality. Now let's go up a further 4 half steps. You should arrive on the letter E. Play all these notes together and we have an A minor chord. Remember, the formula is reversed compared to major chords. Find the root note and then go up 3 half steps, then up another 4 half steps. And there we have it, a simple way to find the notes of any major or minor chord. Have a go at experimenting with the various starting root notes, trying to find both major and minor versions of each chord. There are 24 in total.
But of course, you don't have to do that.
Understanding and being able to identify the difference between half steps and whole steps is critical to the study of music theory. While the distance from each line and space on the staff looks identical, they are not all the same distance apart in terms of pitch. It is easiest to show this concept using the piano keyboard. The white keys on the piano are labeled A through G. The letter names and positions on the keyboard correspond with the lines and spaces on the staff. In treble clef, the lines and spaces are labeled like this. Each pitch on the keyboard is exactly 1/2 step apart. Thus, if we start on the white note C and raise the pitch by 1/2 step, we would play the black note directly to the right. If we start on the white note C and lower the pitch by 1/2 step, we would play the white note directly to the left. You will notice there are no black keys between the pitches B and C, as well as E and F. This means that the distance between B and C is a 1/2 step, and the distance between E and F is a 1/2 step. 1/2 step movement from any other starting pitch will always involve one black key and one white key. We name the black keys depending on their relationship to the white keys. A sharp indicates raising a named pitch by a 1/2 step. Flat indicates lowering a pitch by a 1/2 step. Thus, the black key to the right of the white note G is called G sharp. If we approach this exact same black key from the other side, we call it A flat. Thus, G sharp and A flat are called enharmonic pitches. Every black key on the keyboard has two common names. In actuality, all pitches have more than one name. Some are less common than others, but the rules of 1/2 steps, sharps, and flats hold true throughout. For example, if I start on the white key E and I want to raise it to E sharp, I would move 1/2 step to the right, which happens to be the white note F. That means that the note F and E sharp are enharmonic pitches. Understanding all of that, we can now introduce our next rule, and that is that a whole step is always made up of 2 1/2 steps. If we start on the white key G, a whole step up from that would be the white key A, because this distance involves 2 1/2 steps. Starting on G, a whole step down would be the white key F. If we start on the white key B, a whole step up actually lands on a black key. It still follows the whole step rule by involving 2 1/2 steps. The resulting note a whole step above B is C sharp. When you look at the music stat, it is not as obvious where the 1/2 steps fall. The distance between B and C is a 1/2 step, but the distance between F and G is a whole step. Therefore, it is important to visualize the keyboard when you are learning this concept. After enough practice and involvement, this concept will become more automatic.
You do not need to know how to build major and minor chords. You just need to understand that there's a formula. And that's why they sound like they sound.
Major and minor scales are the root of music because they allow us to limit ourselves to a certain collection of pitches that we can then use to write effective melodies and harmonies. But to first understand them, we have to understand 1/2 steps versus whole steps. A 1/2 step is the smallest distance between 2 notes, also known as a minor second. So if I play the note E, a minor second will be an F. So we can go back and forth, and that will be a minor second. A whole step then is 2 1/2 steps, or also known as a major second. So if 1 1/2 step was E to F, 2 1/2 steps puts us on F sharp. So E to F sharp is a major second or a whole step. So a major scale is comprised of whole steps and 1/2 steps in a very specific order. So it's whole, 1/2 step plus whole, 1/2. So that would look something like this. In a C major scale, the major scale would be C to D, D to E, E to F, all the way up. That gives us a C major scale. On the other hand, a minor scale comes in 3 different formats. A natural minor is very similar to a major scale, but we have to start flatting some items in order to turn them into 1/2 steps. So, for example, if we were to start on A, we can create an A minor or a natural minor scale by going from A to A, all white notes on a piano. So that's a whole, 1/2 step, whole, plus whole, 1/2 step, whole, whole. Very similar to that is the harmonic minor scale, which is when we take a natural minor and we sharp the seventh note. So in an A minor scale, that'll be the G sharp, which gives us a lot of interesting chord possibilities. It's a very Eastern sound. As soon as we introduce that G sharp. The third is called the melodic minor scale. So this one's a little bit more complicated because it's actually a mixture of natural minor and major. So what happens is we split up the scale into what are called tetrachords, which are groupings of 4 notes. So the first 4 notes are natural minor, A, B, C, D. And then the next 4 notes are major, as in A major scale. And then all the way down, all natural minor. So we put it all together. This really gives us the best of both worlds. For example, if you're trying to go up in your melody, you hear this style of sound a lot in Baroque music with composers like J.S. Bach. So now you understand the difference between whole steps and half steps and how that allows us to better understand major scales and minor scales. Major.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of chapter 5. So tonight, here's our our running document we've been working on. Tonight, we talked about beat. Let's choose a new color. How about green? Beat. Chord. Remember, this is the alphabetical list. Harmony. Meter. Modulation. Rhythm. Scale. Syncopation. Tonic. Do 3 at once. Tonic, transposition, and triad. Okay, so that shows you what we have left to do. So next time we will get these a bunch of these go really fast because they're related, like all of these that are in right here in the A section that are all in italic print. Those are all tempo markings. So that's going to go really fast because they are all related. The crescendo and decrescendo are part of dynamics. That's going to go really fast. So forte and fortissimo. So those are going to go very quickly. So next time we're going to talk about form. We're going to talk about dynamics, tempo, and texture. That means that our first test, our vocabulary test, will be on the 21st. Next week is the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. We are going to have class. So next week we'll finish off our vocabulary list, and then the 21st we'll have our first test, which is this vocabulary list, the 50 essential terms. After that test, we're going to go ahead and jump into the next topic. Let me look at my little calendar here for a second, which is voting, which is recognizing the instruments of the symphony orchestra. Hopefully a lot of that is review from your school, from your elementary and middle school and high school days, and you have had some experience with that. As always, if you need to get in touch with me, email is the best way to do that. And for those of you who are watching the Zoom recording, in order to get credit for being present tonight, for being to change your status from absent to present, the code word for tonight is tomato. So be sure that you email me and tell me the code word is tomato so that I can change your status from absent to present. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, please read your syllabus because it's explained in your syllabus. The folks who are with me via Zoom or live, do you have any questions at this time?
No, ma'am.
Dane, Chloe, have any questions?
No.
No, thank you.
Okay, then that is a wrap for this evening. Please let me know if you have any questions in the week ahead.
Thank you.